Think about this for a second. Could you live without the internet for an hour?
Hi, I'm Artemis. I am a computer-generated AI voice, and you're listening to Tech Radio.
Every week online and on air with RT Radio, we bring you the latest in tech from Ireland and across the world. You're welcome to episode 1074 this week in association with B&M Accelerate Green. As always, we're looking at the 7 biggest stories of the week, including AI news bots. Are they a good idea? The new Trump smartphone, and we've found something even Amazon can't buy. Plus, we'll be finding out more about how startups are using green tech in interesting ways with Fiona Nulty from Biosense, Jeff Matthews from The Planted Way, and Anne Butterley from Easydry, who are all our guests this week.
From techcentral.ie, this is Tech Radio with Dusty Rhodes and Niall Kitson.
I'm Dusty. Joining me as always, our editor-in-chief, Niall Kitson. Niall, I think the best and the biggest story this week is several reports that have been released about AI as a trusted news source. I think this could be an interesting conversation because I love the tech end of it. You're a journalist.
Yeah.
Did you see the reports and what did you think?
Yeah, well, here's the thing, Dusty. You get something served up by, we'll say, Grok, because that seems to be what happens quite a bit on X, to hilarious results. And you've got a choice between Grok and me. Who do you want to get your news from?
Well, I mean, I know, hands down, I would choose you because you're an intelligent human being.
Right.
Whereas Grok is some kind of an automated I mean, computers are brilliant, but I never consider any computer intelligent. I don't really consider artificial intelligence intelligent because it's all code. Niall Kitson is not code, so that's why I would trust you more.
Okay, fair enough. But I think as an introduction to what we're going to chat about, not everybody agrees.
Well, I don't know if anybody, if people don't care or whatever. Anyway, listen, let me give you the main stats. Commission Man, who look after all the media in Ireland, have an annual trusted news source survey that they do. And they also work with other people, Reuters and stuff like that, which is a separate survey, which we'll tell you more about as well. But here in Ireland, 56% of adults say they're extremely or very interested in the news, which is a good thing. The most trusted news sources are RTE, followed by local radio and local newspaper, which kind of feeds in with your question there. It's like, I don't know Grok, but I know Niall Kitson. So that's why I trust you. Maybe people trust local radio and local newspaper. Sources of news in Ireland, 58% of people say television. And it goes right down to, and here's the bit that worries the pants off me, Niall.
Yeah.
5% of the Irish population get their news from AI chatbots.
And that's an interesting 5% because for me, I would say it splits fairly evenly down the line between early adopters, which is fine. You're always going to get that, and that's a good thing because that's how the technology grows. And the other half are people that have an inherent distrust of what they would regard as the lamestream media and are looking for confirmation bias and are looking to be told that all the conspiracy theories they believe in about, you know, everything from the Kennedy assassination to the Great Replacement, or to, it's replacement theory, I think, or natalist if you're a member of Elon Musk's particular cult, natalism, sorry. It is an interesting mix. So you could realistically say that 2.5% of people out there looking for news do so from an outlet they desperately hope will confirm what they already think.
And that's not a good thing.
No, it's not.
And that's what I say about the computers, because the computer will, with the echo chamber, will just feed you what you want to hear.
Yep.
So that's kind of a little bit. But anyway, that's only the 5%. I just thought it was worrying that we have 5% of the population who are relying on AI chatbots for news. That's like, However, more interesting is that in the last year, 15% of Irish people, last year I should say, 15% of Irish people said that they were comfortable with news that was produced by AI. That number has now gone up to 19%.
Okay, let's look at what they mean when they say produced. So is this a matter of, a press release has come in, make sense of this by shaving off 100 words or something like that? Or is it, here's a piece of news that has come in, please reformat it into 5 bullet points, right? In a meeting. So you could go from something that could potentially be shaving off valuable information to something that could just be presenting all of the information just in a slightly more palatable way.
It could be. I'm not entirely sure which way it is, but nevertheless. The Reuters survey was the other big one with Commission Man. Now, the difference with the Reuters survey is that it goes across 48 countries. Okay. That's big, right? So I was saying in Ireland, 5% trust news from AI chatbots. Across the world, it's 7%.
7%
trust AI news bots, which is okay. Now, this is the bit where I was kind of sorry. You were going to say?
No, I mean, on one level, it's like, okay, our Ireland is pretty much there, but looking on a like for like basis, we're actually pretty skeptical.
I suppose 5%, 7%, you're probably right. Do you know what I thought was interesting? Okay. And I found myself doing this an awful lot. Is that on the Reuters survey, 27% of people said that they use AI to summarize the news. So exactly as you were saying just a few minutes ago, give me this story, but give it to me in 5 bullet points.
Yeah. However, right? So there's a slight difference between what I said and what Reuters seem to be saying. So I was sort of thinking in terms of individual news stories, right?
Okay.
The Reuters stat that you've put in front of me implies, okay, what has happened today? And give me a primer. So you could be looking at multiple news stories.
Okay. And that's what the newsbot is putting out.
Interesting. Is it? That's interesting to me because it means that you could actually be recreating just another kind of echo chamber.
Very true.
It just happens to be presented in a different way. So look, I think, AI as a means to present the news. If you can, I've got an RSS reader. That's pretty much the same thing. I think I don't want to say there's no harm in it, but I think it's certainly a very valid use for it. However, we do know, of course, that AI is prone to hallucinations. So what happens when those shortened version of news stories start to include hallucinations?
Things that never happened. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I don't know. And this is where I think it's kind of interesting that the whole focus is going online for news sources. Okay. So in the States now, particularly more than 50% of people in the States said that they use social more than radio, TV and news apps or news websites to get their news. So we're definitely getting that shift, and it's definitely happening with the younger generations. And I'm talking 15 to 25, 30 maybe. All right. So it's just interesting that the world is changing that way. However, another fact that came out with Reuters that in the States, they said 70% of people are not entirely sure about the truthfulness or the fake news status of stuff that they find online. So I like the fact that the majority of people are kind of getting the news. They kind of go, yeah, okay, that sounds all fine. But at the back of the mind, if they find something that they're kind of going, I wasn't expecting that, they will question it.
Yeah, well, that goes back to my point about skepticism versus confirmation bias.
Yes.
Skepticism is healthy and important, and hopefully that's what sends people out to look at more than one source when it comes to a news story, especially when they feel particularly I don't want to say threatened by, but something that is potentially, big enough to shift your opinion on something, versus small details. But yeah, confirmation bias is so important to keep track of, particularly when, is this a case of what is occasionally politely called low information voters are limiting their news intake to one or two outlets that tell them what they want to hear or feed particular emotions that certain actors want them to feel. These are things to be worried about. I mean, we all have that uncle or aunt on Facebook who thinks everything they get fed is gospel. We all have it. We've all had that phone call where somebody says, "Oh, I got this story on Facebook and you won't believe what's going on." And you'll say, "Well, I actually can believe what's going on." And it has nothing to do with what Facebook is telling you.
I know. Remain skeptical. And if you ever need a tin hat, I've got one you can borrow, okay? Speaking of Facebook, they want to get ahead in AI, and they found something that they cannot buy to make their dreams come true. This is brilliant. Tell me.
It's an interesting story. It's a Facebook story that is actually more about OpenAI. Sam Altman went on a podcast and he was talking about the rush for talent at the moment, because we've had the talent pipeline discussion for as long as we've been doing this show, whether it's general purpose coding, for design, for cybersecurity. There is just a huge jobs market if you want to be a developer. And of course, AI is the new frontier in that. And of course, it's no different. People need talent, and the more niche, the more complex the area, the greater the competition. Now, Facebook have come in and they have been trying to poach talent from AI by doing kind of, two things that go to the core tenets of OpenAI. One not really anymore, but one certainly there. So for years, OpenAI maintained that it would be a not-for-profit endeavor. That's part of what got Elon Musk involved in the first place. That status changed late last year. It is now a for-profit entity. And I think that changed, if you're in AI, that probably changed your perspective on what OpenAI is about. They're either, a realistic company or they're an idealist's project. For the moment anyway, or for the foreseeable, they're a realistic company. And they've got a lot of talent attached to it. Facebook has looked over and went, we haven't done fantastically well with this metaverse thing. People don't love it. In fact, a lot of people hate it. And a lot of people who've been on it have been mistreated. And we haven't looked after those people. So, do you know what? This is a big hassle. Maybe the next thing we should be looking at is how to get ahead in AI. Because we know they've got their large language model, Llama, which you can use in, I think you can use it in... Can you use it in iPhones? There's some handsets that you can use it in anyway.
Anyway, go on.
And they're suffering from this lack of talent. So they have been approaching developers in OpenAI and saying, "Come work for us. We will give you $100 million signing bonus. You will never need to do anything. Only worry about getting this project right ever again." This is the kind of money they're investing in it. Facebook in total have gone and invested $15 billion in AI just in the last month or so, part of which is a 49% stake in a company called Scale AI. It was another sort of AI firm. And they have poached Scale AI's founder, Alexander Wang, to go and work on Meta's project, which is all to do with superintelligence. So we're looking at the moment at what it's called a singularity, the point at which artificial intelligence will be able to match human potential. Facebook, well, Meta is looking one step further. They're looking at artificial superintelligence. So the point at which, AI surpasses human capacity. And they want Alexander Wang to work on the team for this. The deal is done. 14.3 billion is what it has cost. Scale AI maintains that, okay, Meta have bought a share in the company, but it's still, they're not terribly interested in voting on what we do. We're still an independent entity, etc., etc. By the way, they took all our talent. that's being a little facetious, but you get the idea of what's going on. So Sam Altman was talking about what's happening with Facebook's strategy of just trying to poach people to bring them into their superintelligence project. Now, direct quote from Mr. Altman. I think the strategy of there's going to be a little bit of paraphrasing, but anyway, I think the strategy of a ton of upfront guaranteed comp, and that being the reason you tell someone to join, basically, offering a giant salary package, the degree to which they're focusing on that and not on the work and not the mission, I don't think that's going to set up a great culture. And I think he's very right there. I mean, people joined OpenAI because of the mission. It was non-profit. Yeah. Everybody wanted in on it. This is where AI is happening. And you know what? They're not evil.
I think that's true of any job, is that, the money is, it's not everything. It's important, but it's not everything. It's kind of like, well, what am I getting out of the job for my brain? Am I challenged? Is the work interesting? Are the people around me nice? All of that kind of stuff. Like, if it only came down to the number, that's another thing. Moving on, our good friend in the White House in Washington has released his own brand of smartphone. And I think it's brilliant. Do you think it's brilliant as well?
Dear leader is at it again. We now, well, we, not us. We, speaking for the global we, or rather our American cousins, will from September have something called Trump Mobile, which is a Trump branded mobile network. Now, when I say mobile network, we are talking about a mobile virtual network operator. Right. We have them over here.
So it's like
Tesco Mobile is a good example.
Exactly.
And the reason that we have them is to promote competition in the market space. The concept of rolling out any sort of communications operation is beset with problems of infrastructure. Massive investments needed, absolutely massive. Right. And not everyone can afford that. So what you get is you have the operators actually putting in the infrastructure, and then you've got people that are selling services off the back of that infrastructure. Right. So and that's where the MVNOs come in. That's almost like a wholesale deal, I suppose, kind of what you have with Cyro and broadband.
Can I ask you then? So, like Tesco, I think, and other operators like that are charging €15 a month. Does this mean because Trump is using the same mobile virtual network operator thing that his thing is going to be $15 a month as well? Sorry. That sounded like a rather large cackle of a laugh there, Niall. Are you telling me it's not €15 a month?
I think you'll find. Okay, look, if you want to buy into this Trump Mobile stuff, you are paying $47 a month. Now, I mean, the whole thing of this is that, there you go. There you go. So, I mean, this is all about appealing to the Trump base, which I suppose, even with everything going on at the moment, is about 15% of the US population. I mean, people sort of talk about, how many people actually turned out for Trump in the election, that, but if you look at, if you shave off people who actually turned out to vote, if you shave off, the margin of victory, you're looking at a base of about 15 to 16% of a population of 300 million. So, I mean, this is still very, very, possibly a very, very lucrative
So it's
offer.
45. It's 45 million people who love everything that Trump does. And despite the fact that, and this is why I think it's brilliant, okay? So 15% of, sorry, what did I say? 45 million people, okay? They love what he does. And is a huge, let's say 10% of them, okay, want to get in on the action.
Yeah.
All right. And that's 4.5 million people. And they're going, I don't care what the price is. I'm going to buy it.
Yeah.
All right. 5 million sales essentially at 50 quid a month. Brilliant. Well done.
Cha-ching. And no infrastructure investment required.
Exactly. But surely those people are still going to look for more value than just here's all your calls and your text and your broadband. Is there anything else? Do you get a gold phone or anything?
Oh, well, we can get to that. But apparently bundled in for your $47 a month will be things like an online doctor service, roadside assistance, and device protection and that kind of thing. So on the surface, you'd go, okay, that all looks pretty good. How much of that is actually window dressing is, kind of remains to be seen. Now, that said, I mean, I'm going to make an unfair generalization, but a lot of Trump voters seem to be older. So does that make, access to an online doctor service an attractive feature? Well, maybe it does.
Oh, good God, yes. Oh, older people. The first thing you hear every time I go to see my folks is like, I was at the doctor during the week with me knee.
Well, if it's free.
If you have a phone and you can ring a doctor for free.
Yeah.
And do you know what? Especially in the States where access to healthcare is not like it is here.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Interesting. So in many ways, brilliant. And do you know what? It would be interesting. Well, Tesco wouldn't quite be the brand, but if Vodafone, say, turn around or or whatever, and they said, okay, here's a new thing. It's €30 a month, includes all of your calls and your data and but also it'll cover all of the stuff that when you're out and about. So if you have an accident in your car, we'll cover that. If you need some doctor's advice, we'll cover that as well. If you lose your phone, we'll cover that as well. If money is stolen out of your Revolut account or whatever, we'll look after that as well. Do you know what I mean? Like kind of, it's a device where all of the problems that you might have in the places where you might use it are all covered. That's kind of...
Okay, that's
an interesting proposition.
Here's the rub, right? What is this, effectively a very comprehensive insurance package sold along with your network connection, or are you just selling access to these services with no commercial liability? So you might get through to a doctor, but that doctor separately is on the clock. Do you see where I'm coming from with there?
I know exactly where you're coming. So many questions.
The best question,
a very interesting
of all,
twist there.
Best question of all. What will people be accessing Trump Mobile on?
Oh, on the what kind of an actual phone? Oh my God! I hadn't even thought of that because they don't make smartphones in America. Let's make America great again. Made in America. Here's the president's Trump phone, and it's made in China.
It's made in China. The T1 coming out in September. It's a gold version of a fairly, I don't want to say bog standard, but a mid-range Chinese smartphone. These things will be bought for $15 and sold for, what is it, $450, $500? Come on.
Why didn't you tell us that at the start? That's hilarious. One more news story, maybe two. Andy Jassy has said the quiet part out loud to employees at Amazon. Tell me more about this.
Yeah, well, we know what has happened in the commercial departments. Sales, marketing, customer service. Agentic AI is looming over all of these functions across tech. I mean, this isn't, necessarily an Amazon story in and of itself. However, Andy Jassy has come out and he said in a memo to staff, as we roll out more generative AI and agents, it should change the way our work is done. We will need fewer people doing some of the jobs that are being done today and more people doing other types of jobs. So if you're somebody that, is very good at maybe project management, or, you're a particularly gifted coder, or you're very good at product, for example, maybe you don't need to worry so much, and you will still be able to use AI as a not so much a peer but a tool for your job. That's fine. If an AI can actually do your job, well, you are in line for downsizing, and you know what? A lot of people aren't going to notice, given the kind of traffic between big tech. It'll just become the norm. Very few people will actually come into the office one day and go, hey, didn't there used to be like 350,000 people working in the company extra? Yeah. Where have all those people gone? It's like, no, they've just been replaced. And, some of it will be natural attrition. But there you go. It used to be that if you were good at sales, you did not need to worry about having a job. You would fit in somewhere. You would, if you were good at sales, you were, I won't say indispensable, but you paid for yourself, and then some. However, we're getting into a stage now where maybe folks can sell more with half the headcount. And if it comes down to, okay, this person is actually costing me quite a lot in commission, or he's been able to negotiate a better basic, if I can get somebody in that's at a more junior level that I don't have to pay as much to, and give them an AI to work with, well, maybe that's the solution I need. It's all about the margin, which I think is kind of fascinating. Downsizing post COVID, I mean, that's something tech has just had to deal with across the board, and it is in those white collar kind of roles that the big damage has been done. But kind of the attitude of, do you know what, we're going to have to let you go. By the way, nobody's going to notice. That is interesting.
And telling people that in advance. I mean, oh my God, can you imagine what your morale would be like if you were working in it? Oh, I don't even want to think about it. Anyway, listen, let's move on to our last thing of the week before we get into our guests. At the very start of the podcast, I asked the question, could you live without internet for an hour? Now, the reason I asked that is because Pure Telecom asked thousands of Irish people the same question. What percentage do you think, Niall, of Irish adults said that they could not live without internet for an hour?
Oh, okay. Actually, this tallies quite well with our earlier story about the news, because people were talking or reporting that their primary avenue for the news was still television. So are people still quite wedded to old media? Would people be quite happy just to absent themselves from the internet and just, do what folks used to do in the 80s and 90s and just watch, an inordinate amount of television? I am, okay. How stuck are we in our ways? Who could live without the internet for an hour? I think that's an interesting demographic question, but I'm going to hedge my bets and say, I'd say 50% of people think they could live without the internet for an hour.
50%, you reckon?
Yeah.
Interesting. The actual answer is 29% of Irish adults say that they could not live without the internet for an hour. So not quite as high as you thought.
Okay.
Here's another question that came up in the survey. I thought this was brilliant. What percentage of people would turn down €5 million if they could never use the internet again, ever?
Oh, goodness.
€5 million, you can never go online again.
I mean, that's not even the down payment for a house. Where's the benefit?
Don't go there. We don't have the disk space.
Okay, well, I mean, depends who you ask. No, in all seriousness, I am going to say maybe 30%.
It's actually 40%. 40%. Almost half of people would turn down 5 million if they could never use the internet again. I would be part of the 60%. I would absolutely take €5 million if I could never use the internet again.
Huh.
In a heartbeat.
We wouldn't be able to do the show.
Yes, but with €5 million, we could afford to meet in the Barbados every single week and just sit down and have a cup of coffee and talk about tech. And who cares if people are earwigging?
Huh. Okay.
You'd be more into that, wouldn't you?
That'll work. Yeah.
Elsewhere in the survey, 48% of people said that they felt that their online interactions feel just as meaningful as in-person conversations. So this ties in exactly what you're saying about we have our weekly little chat about tech and we really enjoy it. And a lot of it is done online. Some of it is done in person and stuff like that. Also, I find and it's a generational thing, I remember family moving to Australia back in the late 90s and I was like, oh my God, we'll never see them again. And now, sure, I mean, they're on WhatsApp several times every blinking day with photographs and videos. And so it's like they've never gone, do you know? Yeah. I think that happens an awful lot more with family circles. So like, kind of people who've moved up to Dublin or whatever, and they're still connecting with their friends all over the country and all over the world as well. All the students going off from the J1, sure, they'd be on WhatsApp and just chatting away as they are normal. And the final stat from that survey of Pure Telecom, 61% credit the internet for improving their relations with friends and family.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I think that's actually a low, but fair enough.
Yeah,
people have spoken.
I think for all the reasons.
Yeah.
For all the reasons I was just saying a few minutes ago. Anyway, listen, there we go. Tons and tons and tons of stuff to talk about. Can you imagine? Midsummer's weekend, all right? June 21st. And here we are and tons of stuff going on in tech. Now, as always, thank you for keeping us up to date with what's going on.
Delivering Irish tech news since 2006. This is Tech Radio.
B&M's Accelerate Green Grow program, delivered in conjunction with Resolve Partners, empowers 9 early-stage enterprises, SMEs and startups driving transformative solutions for a greener future. This week, Niall Kitson meets another 3 founders participating in the program to chat about their experience testing the tech boundaries of sustainability. This week's guests are Fiona Nulty from Biosense, Jeff Matthews from The Planted Way, and Anne Butterley from Easydry.
Jeff, in looking at Chefra, your mission statement seems to be, it's smarter kitchens and smarter menus. Tell us a little bit about how you identified these problems and who you think this will be a good solution for.
Thank you. We have 2 groups. You have your domestic chef at home and you have the commercial chef. And both are struggling with the diversity of menus. It's not uncommon for a family of 4 to have 4 different dinners served, potentially at 4 different times, depending on the evening. And for the commercial kitchen to adhere to all the dietary requirements that their clients are requesting. And we think that AI can play a big role. So we have our consumer platform, which is a plant-based cooking platform where we've been testing different AI modules on helping people come up with recipes. And on the commercial side, and we've been helping organizations that are working on sustainability initiatives and overall carbon reduction from their food service programs.
So is this a case of somebody looks in the fridge and thinks, oh, wow, I've got all this stuff I've either left over from the previous week or I'm just not eating. How do I make this palatable?
Correct. Yeah. And, the age-old question at 5 p.m. we always ask ourselves is, what am I going to feed my family or my flatmates? So one step beyond just looking at it, thanks with LLMs or the basic AI models, you can now take photos of what's in your fridge and upload that, and it can tell you what you can make. And what we're building around that is the memory and storage to understand what your dietary preferences are, as well as, the different people that you feed at your table. And if you are one of those families who's making different types of dishes, say this person's got a wheat sensitivity, this person doesn't eat dairy, this person's vegetarian, right? It can help you work with the ingredients as well as help you build a shopping list so that you're only buying the minimum amount of ingredients for you to complement what is already in your fridge, and as well as your pantry and what's in your spice rack as well.
Sounds like a great solution for people at home. When it comes to restaurants, however, chefs have a reputation for being pernickety, for having something of an artistic temperament. How have you found the feedback from that end of things been so far?
Yeah, well, typically with a chef in a restaurant is that you have the core of the menu of what the chef wants to make, but it's when you start to get into the specialty menu options where some kitchens can fall short. So with our app, you can take a photo of the menu and upload it, and we can flag things for you like you don't have an option for a vegan celiac, right? And then just working what's already on the menu, so the chef's not adding new ingredients, using our proprietary information, put together new dishes based on what's already. So taking aside from this dish, aside from that dish, and then combined with our data on our B2C platform, right? Let's face it, not every chef knows what a celiac vegan would eat, right? And I'll tell you right now, it's not soggy eggplant. And so we have the data of what they actually consume and can help that chef better serve that customer. So if they have a table booking for 12 people and there's one celiac vegan, they're not going to get that booking if the menu doesn't have something for that person.
So it kind of allows chefs to work kind of on the fly if they know somebody is coming in with very specific dietary requirements. So I guess that provides a fairly welcome level of agility.
Correct. And the other thing is that on top of dietary diversity, certain caterers and chefs in certain situations are starting to be challenged by European legislation on carbon measurement. So food will fall under the Scope 3 emissions that the CSRD is starting to require of European organizations. And what that means is that food that you are either selling to your guests or feeding to your workers, right, there's a carbon footprint associated with that food. And so we can also help with the carbon measurement of that for the CSRD reporting. And for organizations who do want to reduce that, we can recommend lower carbon ingredients and swap outs that can help them cook more sustainably.
So there's the potential there for relationships with organic farms, looking at producers, looking for overproduction in certain products or certain vegetables. Is this a problem you've been looking at as well?
Correct. Yeah, we started off with a company called The Planted Way and helping caterers who were serving clients who were already doing this carbon measurement and they wanted to offset that carbon or reduce the carbon. And so food waste is obviously a big part of that. That's 8 to 10% of our overall carbon emissions. But globally, agriculture makes up a third of our environmental impact. And when you start to drill into certain foods, some foods have substantially higher carbon footprint. And it's not just down to location and shipping, although that's part of it. It literally comes down to what is involved to produce that food on your plate. And what's fed to that food that you're now eating.
Anne, let's have a discussion or a very brief talk about Easydry, a very different product for a very different sector. And if you were to have it described to you, initially you would think this doesn't sound particularly sustainable at all because we're all meant to be on reusable products, whereas you're working on a single-use product. So tell us a bit about it.
Well, Easydry is the first compostable, disposable towel in the world. And from a sustainability point of view, we've saved 11.7 billion litres of water. So I suppose it does go against when people say the word disposable or single use. It does go, people kind of can't understand how this is more sustainable than basically buying a cotton towel and washing it, over 100 times. But the key is that, cotton is one of the most, polluting products in the world. There's a high amount of chemicals that are used. There's a huge amount of water that is used in the production of cotton. So it's in comparison to a cotton towel, whereas Easydry, we use eucalyptus fibres. And eucalyptus fibres is a fast-growing product, but it can also grow on land that it's uninhabitable for, humans or animals to, use. So basically we're using land that can't be used for, human habitation or crop cultivation. So in comparison to cotton would use like a huge amount of land and a huge amount of water and a huge amount of chemicals. So then with Easydry, also when you use it, so it's made from a wood fiber, which means it can be used from the wood fiber, and then when it at the end of its life it goes back and it will compost in 12 weeks. So at the moment we have an end of life compostable solution, but also we are looking at the circular solution as well, and that was part of this program. Just how do we bring it back in, because we're looking to target high volume industries like gyms, hotels, healthcare. And with that solution, with the salon solution, you're using a smaller amount of towels, so gathering them up and delivering them, and putting them back into the circular motion isn't nearly as sustainable as when we get a high volume client that you can actually take the towels back and we can actually then use them. And one of the key things that Easydry can actually be used to help cotton products to actually become, so the mix of Easydry in with it when they're recycling the cotton clothes is actually very, very good. So not only can we have an end of life solution, we'll also have a circular solution.
And when looking to sort of sell the idea of mixed fibre clothing, have you had to do or have the discussion about, look, you can mix in sort of what we're doing with your fibres and it's just as strong, it's just as durable, it's everything that you are expecting with your existing materials. Has that been an issue or a discussion you've had to have?
Well, that's not our mission. Our mission is the Easydry product that's replacing cotton or microfiber towels. So in gyms or hotels, for at the end of the life, we can make compostable products. But we now, from a circular solution, we're starting to have those conversations regarding using Easydry as a feedstock. But previously, the technology wasn't there on the other side, how to mix the products. So now it's there. So I think technology is catching up with actually, instead of putting this into compost or, it can now be used as a material to add into other products to give them a second life, so that would be the key thing. But that's actually only in its infancy at the moment. And the reason it's in its infancy is kind of like when people were trying to recycle paper years ago, that it actually cost more to recycle, paper products than it did to actually, make it with, virgin materials. So now with the volume increasing, it actually makes sense both production wise, because in order to set up machines and to run, material through your production, you have to have a certain amount of fiber to start it or to make it economical. And that's a whole kind of, solution in its own right, trying to gather materials, bring it to the right, production facility, kind of, I suppose, break it down to its kind of core essence again, and then rebuild it. So I suppose for Easydry at the moment, that's a 3 to 5 year goal. At the moment, what we're trying to do is to get everybody to use Easydry. And if you're in a salon, for example, they can use Easydry on the client. It's a single use in a professional or a professional setting purely because they're not washing the towel. But Easydry, because it is inherently hygienic, so it's sterile without being sterilized. So the client can take it home and use it on themselves again. So what we say at the end of the service is, ask your client, do they want to take it home? They can use it on their hair for another 2 or 3 times, or they can use it to clean their car, to, clean their golf clothes if they're into golfing. So there's secondary uses that can be used to the towel. And then at the end of its life, Easydry is home compost certified as well. So we're industrial compost certified for the big organizations, but we're also home compost. So if the client takes it home, they can put it into their brown bin. And I suppose that's the goal, where we're trying to say single use in a professional setting, but ask your client, do they want to take it home and use it, for a second or third use? And if they don't, then you put it into your compost bin. And that will get it into the circular solution naturally.
And I imagine sort of the likes of salons, it's a very sort of easy solution to a very common problem. Gyms, I imagine people are quite, they're still in the habit of bringing their own towels. Have you noticed any one particular sector being more, I don't want to quite say amenable, but faster on the uptake than others?
Well, I'd probably say salons, because we're in the salon sector. And that's purely because with Easydry, it's a product substitution, because let's say they're using towels to wash and dry the hair at the moment. If you go into a hotel, they're currently cleaning the bed sheets, the pillowcases and towels as one aspect of that budget. And then the same with gyms. You have some gyms give towels for free to their clients as part of the membership. Some of them actually, they give you a towel at the start of your membership, and then it's up to you to bring it if you've forgotten it, tough luck. So there's a different models, but within the salon side of it, all of them have to use a towel to dry your hair. So I suppose that's the one where I suppose the door was more open to, at least it was a straight away product substitution. You're using this, use an Easydry towel instead, and it's better for everything.
Fiona, tell us a little bit about Biosense, because on one level, it's a fairly obvious solution. You're wondering why it's not being done, certainly by state organisations. And on the other, it sounds like it's something everyone can get involved in. So what exactly is the idea?
The idea really that we're pursuing is to apply data science solutions to the ecological sector. And obviously this has been done, as you pointed out, to a degree already by state organisations, but at the moment, it's a very fragmented solution. So different organizations have different, data storage solutions, but it's quite difficult for a consultant or somebody to access all of that. And in tandem with that, if you say you have a planning application, or you're looking at restoration on a site or something, typically when a consultant goes out to a site and measures the ecology that's there and records the habitats and the species, all of this data is usually put just into a PDF report and sent to the client. And it's the same for things like planning. So if you have an environmental impact assessment, again, it's publicly available information, but it's in a PDF report. So we're looking at ways to digitize that information and to digitize information going forward, because that data has applications, into restoration far into the future, rather than just the one-off solution that the person has been commissioned to give them.
When we're talking about restoration, we're not so much talking about making land sort of suitable for houses. You're looking at sort of perhaps rewilding or efforts like that.
It's both. So the common thread that all of these projects have in common is they need to demonstrate the impact that they have on nature using clear, reliable evidence. So if you're building a development, if it's houses or renewable energy, you will be required through statutory obligations to show that you're not damaging nature. And that requires consultants who know what they're looking at and data and evidence to show that when this development is installed, it won't have a negative impact on nature. And similarly with restoration, you need to show this will have a positive impact on nature, and this will, if we make these efforts to carry out these actions, we know that they will have a positive result. So it really has applications in both, in minimizing the impact of development and then maximizing the impact of restoration.
It's a very common conversation we have about data, is that lack of consistency in collection and interpretation. How have you found, whether it's a private contractor or a state agency, that sort of interest in a common standard or a common language when it comes to assessing land or biodiversity?
Yeah, I think there's a real need for it, because a lot of the methods at the moment are based on professional judgment, which is obviously, it's a qualitative method of looking at impacts. And I think there's a real need for it to be supported by a quantitative solution. So it's something that we're looking at within the data solutions we're building, is to build statistical models that would, analyze in a quantitative way the impact that a development would have on a site. And I think particularly on the planning and development side of things, it's very important, because we can see a lot of applications going to appeal and to judicial review, and this can cause delays. And lots of these projects, we need development in order to progress towards our climate targets and our housing targets. But at the same time, you know, if we don't protect biodiversity, like they're all linked. So there's a real need within those systems to integrate a robust method of analysis to support professionals in making their judgments, and I suppose to make things more clear and reliable and transparent in terms of how those assessments are made.
And in working with experts that are looking to sort of put together reports and put together their cases, have you identified any sort of data points or any areas that perhaps aren't being looked at the moment that would really lend weight to an expert's case?
I think it's more of a general feedback we get from them is that there's a need for certainty. So in the ways that assessments are done, there are different types of assessments. I won't go into the very technical details of them, but you know, there's something you might look at for a wind farm would be different than what you'd look for, say, development near a river that would have what's called a hydrological impact. But at the moment, the methods that are used are, again, qualitative, and the consultants and professionals we've spoken to have expressed a need for more certainty, looking for these quantitative methods to back up how they do their assessments at the moment. And I suppose things like hydrology, renewable energy like wind farms would be examples of applications in the planning and development sector that these solutions would be used for.
I think that's a really interesting point. And very often you hear about housing developments in floodplains and these kinds of things, just very poor levels of planning. And I imagine having sort of what you're working on really would lend credence to a case of, okay, look, fine, we need houses, but this isn't a suitable area to put them.
Exactly, yeah. It comes all the way back to zoning in a way. You know, when you have your development plan that's generated by the local authority, that informs how the land is zoned, which then informs the types of developments that are placed on the land. So if we can bring digital solutions and harness all the data that's out there already and the lessons learned that we have, which have been put together by highly experienced, qualified ecologists and professionals, we can use that then to learn and to plan better for the future to help to prevent those types of things happening, where maybe there's a development that's not properly suited to a site and it ends up getting trapped in the planning system. Whereas if you can go back to the beginning and plan effectively at development plan stage, hopefully we can make the process smoother for everybody.
And that was Niall Kitson with Fiona Nulty, Jeff Matthews and Anne Butterley. To find out more about the Accelerate Green programme, you can visit accelerategreen.ie, and that link, of course, in the description area of this podcast right now.
This is Tech Radio with Dusty Rhodes and Niall Kitson.
That's it for this week. Do remember to check out some of the other stories that are online that we didn't manage to squeeze into the podcast today, including...
the Mater Hospital opens a new centre for research into the clinical applications of AI. Intel employees brace for confirmation of job cuts. And the EU cracks down on AI-generated child sexual abuse content.
All of those stories and more online at techcentral.ie. We're back again next Friday with a brand new show online and, of course, with RT Radio 1 Extra. In the meantime, please do share our podcast with a friend if they're into tech and all that's kind of going on in the world. Tell them to look up Tech Radio Ireland on Apple, Spotify and on YouTube. Until next time, from myself, Dusty Rhodes, and from Niall Kitson, have a great Midsummer's weekend. Good luck.
Remember, you can get the latest Irish tech news with hourly updates, daily newsletters, and more at our website, techcentral.ie. Share the knowledge and invite a friend to listen. Search Apple, Spotify, or YouTube for Tech Radio Ireland, or listen with RTE Radio 1 Extra. Tech Radio is produced by dustpod.io for techcentral.ie. From me, Artemis, live long and prosper.